As we transition to different work models, how can companies ensure that their employees feel engaged and motivated? We spoke with author and award winning entrepreneur Ashwin Nayak, founder of Mana Wellness, which works on preventive mental health for employees, and the author of The Healthcare Game Changers, a book profiling global innovations with the potential to change the way healthcare is delivered. Here is his top 5 on what organizations can do to enable a safe and comfortable transition for employees as they adopt to new work models.
What has happened is the structure of work, what it means to be an employee, what it means to be an employer, what it means to be a manager or a leader is changed so much in our own minds that people are unsure how we will start functioning again once we are back in office. In this context, we work with a lot of companies helping their leadership teams to figure out how to enable a safe and um, comfortable transition back to work. And while we work with these companies, we have noticed that some companies are better able to manage this transition while some are struggling. And what we have seen is there are 5 critical things needed for this transition back to work. First thing is to start with communication, whether it is the change is positive or negative. In some cases, it is going to be negative. Keeping everybody informed well in advance, walk them through the decisions likely impact on the company and how it is aligned to the company's goals of future is very, very critical. Now is the right time to start engaging people at all levels, not just at the top leadership level, but all levels on what it means. And when we say what it means to come back to work, I think it's not just from the lens of what the company thinks, but what it means to come back to work from an employee's point of view. One of the things that we encourage people to do it is share these coming back to work stories with each other. So that brings us to the second piece, which is listen. I think good companies always listen to their employees, the frontline employees, and try to incorporate those views. But I think it's now non-negotiable to have listening circles, if you will, to capture feedback from everybody on how to navigate this new normal, especially from the employees at the forefront, at the front line, and particularly the younger generation of employees, people who might have joined your organization in the last year or so. I think this has been a extremely stressful or a tough time for them. So to listening to them and creating the environment which is conducive. So how do you prepare your team members' mindset to be ready for all these changes that might come up? This is not the first pandemic, neither would this is the last pandemic. We will have to be prepared for changes or issues like this that will come up in the future. What it means is then how do we prepare our teams? How do we groom our teams? How do we train them? And how do we empower them at all levels that we are not blindsided by any such event in the future? So that's the third piece. The fourth piece, I think, in companies, a lot of emphasis was put on soft skills in the past. I think one thing which is clearly required now to be demonstrated by leadership and by managers is empathy. Whether people are comfortable coming back to work or prefer hybrid working environment or completely work from home, I think a very high level of empathy is needed to recognize that different people will have different needs and organizations to go the extra mile to be sensitive to their individual needs. The concept of what it means to be a organization is itself changing. What it means to be an employee is changing. Where we work from is changing, and the concept of workplace itself is undergoing significant transition. So in this, I think the last piece that we see is as important is how do leaders across the board inspire their teams. I think this is the time now to rebuild our company, our economies, our workforces. How do we publicly acknowledge employees who are doing great work, who are taking lead in adapting to the change? How do we constantly highlight how this change has created opportunities to learn new skills, or to take more responsibility, or even to craft a workplace which is conducive to your own needs? So I think these are the five key elements we feel are relevant as we get back to work, starting with communicate, beginning to listen more actively, prepare for future pandemics, empathizing across the board, and inspiring people to this new normal.